Tuesday. It is Tuesday, February 7th, the 38th day of the year. There are 327 days left in 2023. And welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. In 1983, I did my first film job as an actor. It was for a job on a film called Rebel Love. The name was later changed to Shadow Waltz, or vice versa. I can't remember which was first. But I got a copy of that film and a copy of that poster in my office. I remember the excitement I felt when I wandered into a video store. You remember video stores, right? And I found this copy of Rebel Love on the shelf. And that was the beginning for me. Since then, there have been dozens of films and television programs, including Antley's favorite, In the Heat of the Night, feature films like Fight Club, Jeepers 2. And last year, I got to work on a film on the border of Georgia and North Carolina called Black Balsam. Black Balsam by writer, producer David Schifter. And David is with us today as our G-List guest. Black Balsam marked the second time that David and I have worked together. David is here today to give us the story and the inside tips on Black Balsam. So our G-List guest today is David Schifter, and we look forward to that conversation. This edition of Tuesdays with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl consulting firm. Best Girl has been providing customized solutions to executive issues for more now than 34 years. Let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
It's the solution that fits your needs. So let's move on to our roundtable regulars and introduce Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker and see what they got going for us today. Good morning, Barbara and Michael.
Good morning, Thom and Michael. How are you all doing today?
Doing well. Good morning, TG and Barbara. Hope you two
All
are
right.
doing well.
Doing well. Thank you,
Doing great.
man. So what's happening with you, Barbara?
Well, Thom, I don't know if you all got a chance to watch the Grammys on Sunday night, but phenomenal show. Probably one of the best Grammys I think I've ever watched. And there was some history made on Sunday. The Beehive, I'm sure, was very happy as Beyonce won her fourth Grammy of the night, and I think she is now the all-time high of 32 Grammys, and so that was phenomenal for her. And one of my favorite artists was named the best artist of the year, jazz artist Samara Joy. I don't know if you all are familiar with her, but it's very talented young lady. She was super. So if you got a chance to watch it, there was the 50 years of hip hop, and everybody was talking about that all over social media. It was great of entertainment.
Well, I have to admit to you, Barbara, I did not see
Okay.
the Grammys. It's I didn't. And that's all I can say.
Okay. Viola Davis also won EGOT. She's now an EGOT winner. She's has an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and a Tony. She won her first Grammy on Sunday night.
Well, good. What'd she win a Grammy for? That's for singing, isn't it?
It is, and I actually walked out of the room, so I missed that part. So I don't really know what. Let's see.
I knew her husband when I was working in Los Angeles.
Right.
we'd go to some of the same auditions.
I think she did a memoir called Finding Me, and then maybe it's on audio. But I'll look that up and let you all know.
Michael, you didn't watch the Grammys?
Tom, I did not watch the Grammys. I could not dedicate 4 hours of my life to watching that. I had other things to do.
Well, good for you, I guess. Uh, I didn't get a chance to see it either.
Yeah, yeah.
It just sort of passed me by.
I see.
So, Michael, what's going on with you, brother?
Well, I have a couple things I'd like to share with you guys this morning. You know, this is Black History Month, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the first Tuesday that we've had the show for Black History.
Yes.
So, in honor of that, I have a couple things that I'd like to share with you guys. Number one, since we talking a little bit about entertainment, the Super Bowl is coming up this Sunday. For the first time in an NFL history, we have two Black starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. That
Yes.
is a Black history moment for you. Along with, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Saturday marked 35 years since the first Black quarterback starred and won a Super Bowl, Doug Williamson.
Doug Williams, yes.
And
Has it
he
been that
was,
long? Wow.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. And he said he had tears of joy of seeing this. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention in celebration of Black history is something that people probably haven't heard a whole lot about. A young man by the name of Angelo Braxton Herndon. He was charged with insurrection in Georgia back in the 1930s. Not only was he charged with insurrection, the prosecutor and the judge, they wanted to sentence him to death for having communist material.
Mm.
And when these lawyers pointed out that the information that he had in his possession could be found at the local library, the judge then decided that he, instead of sentencing him to death, he would sentence him to 18 to 20 years hard labor on the chain gang.
Wow.
Wow.
And a little backstory on Angelo. He was born in southwestern Ohio. He endured a lot of racial discrimination, attended public schools, but at the age of 14, he moved to Kentucky to work in the mines. And by 1930, he was in Birmingham, Alabama, working in Tennessee Coal Iron and the railroad company. And it was upon that place that a communist manifesto by a white worker from unemployed council gave him some information. And what struck Angelo was that the Communist Manifesto was promoting interracial equality and fighting class division, and was actually trying to unite Black people and white people in the labor union to get better pay. And Angelo kind of took this upon himself, and he was arrested several times in Alabama for labor organizing. Wasn't Barack Obama an organizer? Just
Yeah,
Yes,
thinking.
he was. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
neighborhood
Well,
organizer.
Neighborhood
neighborhood
organizer.
organizer. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Angelo was arrested several times back in the 1930s for being a labor organizer, trying to get equal pay for both Black and white people that were working in the mills.
Wow.
He was sent to Atlanta. And once he got here in Atlanta and he was trying to organize, he was arrested. And the police found some communist material in his hotel room. So they wanted to charge him with being a communist. And therefore, they wanted to sentence him to death for doing that. And
Wow.
he had the Communist Party, they had some lawyers that came and represented him. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court. And by a narrow vote of a majority of 5-4, it was overturned. And they ruled that Georgia's insurrection statute, which they wanted to charge him, insurrection, that's something we had not long ago, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, they said the Georgia insurrection statute was unconstitutional, and it was an assault on First Amendment speech and the right to assembly.
Wow.
Just imagine that.
Well, they in the McCarthy era, they arrested a lot of actors, people in the entertainment business, for being quote communist, and some of them were, most of them were not, but they were arrested. They were made to basically get kicked out of the party, um, and so it's not the first time um, that this has happened. And
Right.
interesting, though.
Very
Yes,
much so.
yes, yes. So he escaped death and 18 to 20 years of hard labor on the chain gang for just
Uh,
having material that you could find at the library.
Wow.
And because he was trying
well,
to organize.
we we might not have. Well, we may not be able to find the material at the library today because
That's
in
true.
Florida, because DeSantis is going to ban it. Uh, he's going to
Oh,
ban, make sure that nobody can read anything that.
why would anyone want to erase history? That is part of American
Well,
history.
if you
That's
don't like what
crazy.
the history says, then you try to get rid of it. You know,
It doesn't work
and
that way. It's still history,
well,
you
it's
know?
working that way in Florida. Uh,
That is true.
you
That's
know,
sad. That is true.
it's very sad, but
You know,
Mhm.
I remember being in elementary school and being taught history and civics and all of that type of stuff, which I found fascinating. But the one thing, and I always, as Richard Pryor said, I said this to myself, I always wondered, when I was reading all this history, I always wondered, well, where were the black people? You
Right.
know, and everything I heard was about, all of the things that our forefathers did, and they were all white. And I said, well, gosh, black people must have been real stupid or real lazy. We didn't do anything. And I said to myself, I said, well, is that
so
supposed to mean that I'm just like that too? And
And that's what they want you to think, Michael. I think that's the intent is, just erase that part of history and then no one will ever know. And, you know, the blacks will assume that they were just ignorant and stupid and didn't have any involvement in the important parts of history.
yeah,
well,
yeah,
history repeats, and it's repeating right now because Ron DeSantis reminds me of George Wallace. I grew up
Yes.
under George Wallace, and
Yes.
anything he could say to divide people, he would say it. Anything he could do to divide people, he would do it. And I see
Right.
the same thing
Right.
happening today. Um,
It is so
you can't. You're trying to get elected, and as opposed to having some thought, some deep
mhm.
thought, something that resonates with people, you come up with all this crap, basically. And of course, some people will go for it. So, unfortunately, that's where we are. So, go ahead. You were saying something, Barbara? Barbara?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
It's there was a little bit of a delay there, I think, but and I didn't hear your full question, Tom. I'm assuming you asked
No,
me if I
you
have
were
anything
saying
else.
something.
Oh, I really wasn't. I wasn't saying anything at that point, but I
Okay.
will say there's some Black history that again we have no idea about. I was just doing some research for the show this week and came across something that I did not know. Mrs. Mamie Van Britten Brown, who was born in January 7th, 1922, was an African American nurse and inventor from Queens, New York. In 1906, at the age of 44, she came up with a brilliant idea to create a unique home surveillance device with a closed circuit television security system. So she was the inventor of the home security system. And again, that's information that I did not know. And that's type of information that's just been excluded from our history books.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I saw that same article about some of the inventions and stuff
Mhm.
in Black history. And, you know, I think all history should be taught in schools.
Right.
And I know some of the history is not pleasant, you know, but
A lot of
well, yes, but running away from it and hiding it does not make it better.
Right.
And what's that saying? If you don't know your history, it tends to repeat
Repeat
itself
itself. Yes.
over and over again. And I think if we're going to move forward as a country, we need to have an adult conversation about what happened, acknowledge it, move on, and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right.
And just create a, so to speak, that evasive word level playing field.
Right. I don't
yeah,
know why people are so afraid of the history. Yeah, it may not be pleasant, but it happened. It's just something we had to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. It's we want to have selective history. We
Yes.
select what we want you to know, and we
Mhm.
select what we want people to teach. And you know, and I'm willing to bet you that they know, they being in the DeSantis crowd, they know that all this stuff that they're doing will eventually get overturned
Mhm.
by some court.
Right.
It won't stand up, and they know that.
Right.
But that's okay
Yeah.
because it allows them to have this moment in the spotlight.
Right.
Um,
And
and
also go back to what you're saying. The main objective of any politician is to get elected
right,
and to get reelected. So,
Exactly.
you know, you brought up George Wallace, and Wallace was a politician. And
exactly,
Mhm.
he
exactly.
said the things that he knew that would get him votes because he wanted to get elected. I mean,
That's
Yes.
right.
how can some man that said all the things that he said and did all the things he said turn right around and went down to Troy and, you know, escorted the black homecoming queen there and appeared at Auburn and escorted the black home queen at Auburn and, you know,
Right.
you either
Told
or you
me,
are.
Yeah, Tom,
told
you got a
me he
chance to
was
meet
on
him.
my side.
Yeah, I was gonna
Said
say, Tom, you met him several times, right?
he's
And
on. Said, believe it or not, I'm on your side. Okay, whatever that means.
yeah, that means in private he was on your side. Publicly, he didn't want to
Well,
acknowledge you at
I
all.
when you talk to some of the civil rights people from Montgomery, who got to know him,
Mhm.
um, he basically did what he had to do to get elected,
Right.
and then as he moved, as he quote mellowed, um, he sort of changed his tune. But I don't know if these people today would change their tunes. I mean, we got some. I just call them idiots. We got some idiots out there now that
Yes.
uh, that want to be noticed. I mean, like this guy who told all these lies about getting elected,
Yeah, Santos.
about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, now that's a straight up idiot.
Idiot. Yes.
Uh, so it is what it is. We have to. That's the world we live in. So we'll
Unfortunately, that's true.
we'll keep moving. So let's see. Okay, either one of you got anything else?
I just want to say good morning, Tom. I'm looking at the comments out here on social media. We've got a lot of new viewers this morning. My cousin William Wallace Smith in Columbia, South Carolina. Good morning. And good morning, Wally. And of course, our old standbys, Aunt Lee Lamont Staton and Miss Gloria Owens, Anthony Tedeschi, and Wendell Merritt Jordan, who was the first Black African American athlete at Auburn University, is watching us this morning. And she was the guest coach at the women's basketball game on Sunday. So good morning, Wendell. Um, So quite a few of our new listeners in with us today.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, why don't we move on to let's get a minute and hear from Sean.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. It's already February 7th, with Valentine's Day slowly sneaking up on us. I know some people like to go all out for the holiday, while others just don't. Here are a few financial tips that may help improve your financial situation, whether you celebrate or not. Number one, pay off your credit card debt. Credit card debt is the number one obstacle to getting ahead financially. Number two, invest. If you're contributing to a retirement plan and a savings account, and you can still manage to put some money into other investments, all the better. Number three, review your insurance coverage. Too many people are talked into paying too much for life and disability insurance, whether it's by adding these coverages to car loans, buying whole life insurance policies when term life makes more sense, or buying life insurance when you have no dependents. And number four, keep good records. If you aren't careful about keeping thorough records, you're probably not claiming all your allowable income tax deductions and credits. Set up a system now and use it all year long. It's much easier than scrambling to find everything at tax time, only to miss items that may have saved you. I hope these tips have helped. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
Well, all right. That's some good advice. We generally keep up with ours throughout the year. So I hate to see people walking around with shopping bags full of receipts and stuff.
Right, right.
Okay. So let's move on to the Hollywood's got the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom we got the G list, and our G list guest today is David Schifter. David is a versatile American actor. He's seen in the semi-recurring role of Detective J.D. Walker on ID's Discovery Channel, Lieutenant Kenda on Homicide Hunter, and Tyler Perry's The Haves and the Have-Nots. He began life in front of the camera as a teenager. As host of a New York cable TV show, Spotlight on Teens, he later spent a successful 14 years as a TV news investigative reporter at the local and national level, earning numerous awards, including 3 Emmy nominations and the coveted Emmy itself in 1999. David took the ultimate career risk by walking away from everything familiar to begin a career as an actor. In 2017, he won an LA Indie Fest Best Actor Award for the lead role in an African-produced film in Nigeria. In 2019, he co-starred with Michael Paré and Nicholas Turturro in a thriller set at the beach titled The Penthouse. David loves living at the beach, living that beach lifestyle in North Carolina, and traveling worldwide for work. He's also a volunteer firefighter in the city where he lives, which says gives him the true feeling of giving back to the community. Black Balsam is available just about everywhere on Prime, Apple, but we'll let David tell us all about it. So, David, how are you this morning?
Good morning, guys. Good morning to you all. Yeah,
Good
doing great.
morning.
Doing great. I want to make one correction in your introduction, and it's my fault because I need to update it. I'm no longer a volunteer firefighter. I'm a full-time career firefighter.
Okay, good
And
deal.
in fact, I got off shift this morning. We work 24 hours on, 24 off, and then we're off for 4 days. So I'm on starting my 4-day break right now, which is really nice. But yeah, no, it's a full-time job now. Firefighter,
good
EMT.
deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good deal. That's great.
So how are you?
Hey man, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm just I'm proud of the film, and I remember us being up there in the woods, and I I told you, I said, hey man, you know, I saw Deliverance. Now we got to be able to get out of here.
Listen, I was listening for banjos and I didn't hear any. We were okay. Paddle faster.
And you know what's funny? Deliverance just came on 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh no,
They showed, yeah, they did on TC.
that's funny. Listen, it was quite an experience for a number of reasons. Black Balsam is a thriller set in the mountains, and it's based on a true story, which I wrote. And then now, of course, there's a lot of literary
license.
Thank you, that I took. But here's where the real portion comes in. My daughters told me that their mom was buying a cabin in the woods. And I thought, well, isn't that nice? And but it turned out that the owner, I guess, had seller's remorse or something, and decided to sort of like stay there a little longer than they should have, and take stuff that they were supposed to leave, like the potbelly stove that was in this, a very charming potbelly stove. They decided to take with them, so it became a little bit of a rough sale. And I thought, well, I wonder what would happen if the guy like never really left at all and haunted the family and such. So my crazy mind, I come up with this story, and here you have Black Balsam, which came out last week, or this week actually, on most streaming services. Actually, it's on a lot of cable systems. It's on Prime Video. Tubi has it, I believe, and a number of places. If you just search for Black Balsam, you'll find it. It's a good thriller.
BALSAM.
Right? Yeah, Black Balsam. And okay, so where did that title come from? Originally, I wanted to call this, and I want to see your what you think of this. I wanted to call it Deadly Mortgage, and everyone said, that sounds like a Lifetime movie. And I said, well, what's wrong with that?
Right. I was going to say, we love Lifetime movies. That would have been great.
And one of our main actress in this film is a semi-regular on Lifetime movies. So I thought, no, that's terrific.
Right.
But anyway, the director, Heath Franklin, recommended Black Balsam. And I said, well, what is that? And he said, well, it's a type of wood. He's a little more esoteric than I am. The type of wood, we're in the mountains, and it's so okay, all right. So that's it, Black Balsam.
I thought it worked well.
It did.
I enjoyed it. It was great.
But basically, the movie's about a couple with two college-age son and daughter. And they buy a cabin in the mountains as a retreat, and this takes place around Christmas or around the holidays, so they want to get in there and get settled in before the holidays and celebrate Christmas with the family there for their first year with the cabin. So when they get in there and they close on the property, they get up there, and the guy hasn't moved out who lived there. And the guy who lives there is the son of the owner. And she had died. And apparently there's a background that you actually introduced, Thom, as the sheriff of Black Balsam. You actually introduced the fact that this guy he was an abusive child. He was not a good guy. And the police know of him, and he's just been that, just thorn in the side of everybody for many years, as he grew up in that town, in the only house he's ever known. And now, as soon as it sells, he's evicted. So he's trying to do everything he can to keep it as long as he can. And eventually the time comes where you, Sheriff Benson, and I, Deputy Sergeant Ashton, show up, and we have to clean house, so to speak.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Who sold the property? Was it his mom? And who
His
got the
mother,
money?
his mother did it and in her will. So
Yeah.
she had set it up, and he didn't know this at first. She set it up that that property would be sold once she passes, and that the proceeds would be given to a woman's abuse shelter.
Okay.
And this all to the chagrin of the son. Wes Goins is the character's name, who is ending up in this situation. So you don't expect the smell of freshly baked cookies when you went in there on the open house tour.
I see. Well, he's getting kicked out of his home and he doesn't even get any money. So,
Right.
No,
Yeah.
no, he
He's
doesn't.
gonna fight it to the end.
Of course.
Mhm.
And his background is he's a taxidermist.
Mm.
So, we see, some of
That's
his creations around the house and the property. Um, my only regret is we didn't do more with that with his craft, so to speak. I would have liked to have started the movie off with him doing that work,
Yeah.
whatever it entails,
Yeah, I
gutting
could see
the
that.
animal. I think that would have been maybe on the producer's cut, we'll reshoot something and add that to the beginning. But yeah, that's my only regret. Otherwise, I thought the film came out really well, and great performances by the cast and wonderful work by the crew.
yeah. Well, with
It
it
was.
set in the woods and Black Balsam and all that, and him being a taxidermy, maybe he can do that type of stuff with people, and that'll be the next part. He's doing that with people now.
You just wait and see what happens in Black Balsam.
Because we're not telling.
Yeah.
You gotta rent or buy it. The movie, we shot it during a very challenging time. 2021, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, just before spring, I think. February of 2021. And it
Yes.
was, during COVID and the lockdowns, and the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, which we did under the contract, had very strict rules about how you could work on a set. They had zones like A zone, B, C, and each zone dictated who could go where on set. So I think A is, cast and primary crew, like the camera people and such, who have to be right there. B is a little further out of the hot zone, and C would be the cold zone, So sound like I'm talking hazmat stuff with the hot zones and such. But anyway, yeah, what we ended up doing was, everyone had to be masked. Everyone had to have their temperature taken, I think a couple times a day. And I, as the producer, was terrified that somebody would get sick and we'd have to shut down. So we had rented, here's the set. We had 3 cabins located on this like endless woods. And one cabin was our set. That was going to be our location to film. The second and third were cast and crew housing. So we had our own little, compound, really.
Right.
And
Yeah.
nobody left. The only person who really left was my assistant, who had to go and get meals because the closest food was like 45 minutes away.
I was
So,
about to say it would take him forever.
oh, God, by the time this poor guy got back from bringing breakfast, he had to leave for
Good
lunch.
luck.
Oh, it was horrible.
Oh,
Um,
God.
Nick Vernon, he deserves a shout out for sure. But he, did a great job. But yeah, that was the problem. The internet and the phone service was terrible. We were really in the proverbial middle of nowhere, and
Yeah, we were.
it was just one of those things that, we just all came together and just said, we're going to get this done and get out of here,
Yeah.
and we did.
I think it really worked well because we had a small crew.
Yeah.
And everybody was focused on what they had to do.
Right.
And
Yeah, you're right.
And that we were driven in one direction.
Yeah.
And when you say small, how large was the crew?
We had, and actually, I had this conversation last week at the premiere in Atlanta with a couple of the people, and I thought 20. I thought we had like 20 crew members, and I was corrected. They said, no, we had about 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
what yeah.
7
Wow.
or 8. And that
Yeah.
was the director of photography, the
Yes.
key grip, the gaffer,
Yes.
my assistant who, helped out with other ways.
Mhm.
Like 5 or 7,
Director,
maybe.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
director, of
That's
course,
unreal.
camera operator. There
And
weren't
they
many.
and they were all, I mean, focused in on what they had to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that was really the cool thing
That's
about it.
good.
and they did it before they needed to. They predicted, okay, we're going to need these pieces of equipment, these lights, these shims, and these filters for the next scene. Let's go get that set up in advance. And so they'd leave early from lunch or something and get that stuff set up. And it was, and there's something to be said for a small crew.
It is.
Thom, you and I have been on sets with a couple hundred people,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of standing around.
Very
And let me
much
tell you,
so.
okay, so I work for a relatively small fire department, and we go to a fire, and it's us with 5 on board, and then mutual aid. We got the surrounding towns, Wilmington, for example, and Curry Beach, which is outside of Carolina Beach, and so now you have about 15 if you're lucky. And in New York, if there was a fire in New York, doesn't matter how big, how small, you got 130 responding.
Wow.
And there's a lot of standing around, but everyone is ready to go.
Right.
And that was what was nice about this crew. Everyone was ready to go. Everyone was ready to work. And they did.
Well, David,
And
Yeah.
I think one of the other things that really made it work was that you having those other cabins, many of the people didn't leave the set at night. They
Mhm.
stayed there.
Right.
Well, we kind of, it was kind of the company store. The company provided your housing, provided your food. That was really what it became. There was no outside world for us.
Yeah.
And with the closest town being 45 minutes away, and we were on the mountain. You were on mountain roads.
That's
I read
right.
a story about that, by the way.
That's right.
But everyone had to sort of sequester to this area. We also had some crew and day players who came in who stayed at a motel up the road, which we rented all the rooms there. So we had the whole place to ourselves there too.
Right.
We had 2 days off during production, and I begged everyone, if you guys leave the compound and go out and go home and have liberty, please be careful and don't get anyone get sick from anyone.
Right.
And we got through this. Nobody had as much as a sniffle, and it was great. It really was. I wanted to mention the mountain roads. The family in the movie, the family car is a Tesla, and only because we wanted to show some sort of status with the family, and also I never drove a Tesla, so I wanted to try it out. So we made that the family car. So as producer, I had the luxury to go and get the car. So we rented it from this guy. It's a really cool app called, I think it's called Turo, Turo, and you can rent cars like somebody's personal car. And if you ever wanted to rent a sports car, you can rent a Maserati, you can rent a Porsche, you can it's really cool. So we rented a Tesla, and I wanted to see, this self-driving capability. And it's pretty cool, but I wouldn't recommend doing it your first time on mountain roads.
Right.
Because you'll be scared S-less.
I bet.
In fact, you set it and you're just hoping, here comes that turn. Please turn. Please, make the turn.
Yeah.
And it was, winding. But this car was amazing. It's amazing technology that you can navigate these roads like that.
Mm.
The car was amazing, but the mountain roads were amazing.
Yeah.
And that one evening, I was trying to get back down to the hotel.
You got lost.
Oh my goodness, man!
You got lost?
People were behind me, blowing at me and stuff because I was going about 25 miles an hour on these.
How fast do they expect you to go on those roads, though?
Well, I guess they lived there and they knew it,
Yeah, they know all the turns.
Well,
It was terrible.
And there's probably no place to pull over so that they can go around you.
No, there is nowhere to pull over.
Right.
That's it.
Not without disappearing over the side.
Yeah, right.
So
Too
let's see
dangerous.
if we got some questions. Michael, Barbara.
We have a question in our chat. Barbara Pitts Larkin wants to know, how long did it take to make the film with such a small crew?
We shot, in filmmaking, every, time is money, and every day you're filming is costing you money. And in our case, it was costing about $5,000 a day. And everything with food, locations, rentals, equipment, cast salaries, crew salaries, it's going to cost you some money. I throw 5,000 out there. I'm not sure that's accurate for our budget, but and that's very, very small budget. You have these
Yes.
multi-million-dollar movies where actors aren't stepping onto set for under a couple $100,000 a day.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. $1 million. I mean, can you imagine going to work for $1 million? Maybe you can, Thom. I sure can. But
I certainly can't.
no. But you go to the fewer days the better, and that's why we shot this in as few days as we could, which I think was about 14 days.
Oh wow.
We were in and out in like 14 days. Now we got up there, the principals like myself and the director, the camera, cinematographer. We got up there a couple days in advance to set things up and to scout.
Right.
But everyone else started to trickle in the days that followed. But yeah, we were there about 14 days of filming, about 16, 17 days total for for a small percentage of us.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Great. Let's see if we got some questions here.
Well, David, I wanted to ask you, you brought up being now a full-time career firefighter. So I guess now you're a part-time actor and a full-time firefighter. So
That's interesting, though. Full-time in the fire service is only about 9 or 10 days a month. And here's how that works. You're working 24 hours. In our case, we go in at 7 in the morning. I got in 7 yesterday morning. I left 7 this morning. And now I'm off for 4 days. So you're 24 hours on, 24 hours off, 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 4 days off. So it's really 9 or 10 days a month, but it's 24 hours of days.
Right.
And you're not, working nonstop, hopefully. You have your a lot of downtime where, it's a house. The firehouse is a house. It's our house and our family for 24 hours. So we go in there, we decide what we're going to have for dinner tonight. We, have a gym. So we'll, take time to work out. We'll take time to train. We are a family. We'll watch, a movie at night. We'll, just goof off. And when the tones go off and the pagers start beeping, we go. And it's all business from there. And like last night, I went to bed a little early because I wasn't feeling great. I went to bed around 9, woke up around 6, got up, put my stuff away, had a cup of coffee with the guys as they came downstairs, and I went home. So sometimes, some nights, you're not working at all. Some nights, you get a fire at 2 in the morning and you're there for the rest of the tour, which could be rough. But hey, that's what we sign up for.
well, as a follow-up, have you seen this hit new show, Fire Country? That's on.
Yeah, my wife likes it more than I do. Now, I don't know a lot about the Wildland Fire Service, but I will tell you that it's not something I would want to do. I'd go crawling into a burning building all day long before I want to go out into the woods and fight fire.
Right.
It's just and I've done some brush fire work, in the state park over here in Carolina Beach. Caught fire and it was like, what are we doing? Because you can't bring in the big trucks and you can't bring in your water supply. You might bring in a can, a water fire extinguisher, but that's 2.5 gallons of water. It's done in a couple of minutes. Now you can put out a lot of fire with 2.5 gallons, but not with the wind and the fire growth. I have a lot of respect for the wildland guys, man. A lot of respect. But I'm a structural firefighter and I like going into buildings.
And David, I have a question about Black Balsam again. once you had the concept for the storyline, how long did it take to actually write the screenplay?
I'm really, really good with coming up with an idea, but then I need people to help flesh it out. So, in other words, if I came up with an idea of a cruise ship on its maiden voyage and it's going to hit an iceberg and sink,
Right.
that would be my story. You know, the ship leaves the dock, it hits the iceberg and sinks. The end. There's no texture to it. There's nothing there, and you need that. So I bring in my people. I have a couple of great writers now. Heath Franklin, who directed, I hired to direct Black Balsam. He helped write this, and a young lady named Bo McCormick. Bo McCormick is a young writer who helped me with this as well. And we fleshed it out. We gave everyone a life, the character's life, and a backstory.
Right.
And that's what's really important with filmmaking, giving them a backstory.
Yes. Yes.
I have about 5 scripts that I want to make into movies. The next one actually is about the fire service. It's I don't want to say it's based on anyone in particular. It's really not, but there are sort of, things that I take out of people I work with and such, and experiences, but it's about a New York firefighter on the verge of retirement, and all he's ever known is fighting fires in the big city. Never really took a vacation, and his marriage is, crumbling. It's headed to divorce, and he says, screw this. I'm going to retire, and I'm going to move to the somewhere in the South, and he becomes the chief of a volunteer fire department, little volunteer fire department that's been closed for several years because they couldn't afford to run it. The town couldn't afford to keep it up, so he comes in and doesn't really know what he's getting into, and the haphazard volunteers that he's adopting, but it's a good feel-good movie, little drama. A little romance, not to give too much away. It's only in script form now, but I want to get that done.
That's
Tom, I'll
great.
be talking with you when we get a little closer to that.
Okay, I think one of the things that, if you look at it, you talk about being an actor and being a firefighter, so on and so forth. There are a lot of actors, smart people, I call them, who work, who are actors, but then they'll have a job that allows them to act. So you
It's
got
called a hobby.
Yeah, but it pays you.
Yeah.
and,
Paying hobby.
and oftentimes well.
Right.
So you find something that will, and I got this from a guy who's passed, who was a great friend of mine. He was a dentist, and he was an actor, and so he would get an acting job. And I met this guy in Atlanta, and he told me, he said, and I started acting, and I started doing the other jobs, and I said, well, I got to make a decision soon. He said, no, you don't have to make a decision. He said, you can do them both. And you just do this one, and then when that one, you do this one, and hey man, it worked out, so you can do them
funny.
both.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'll tell you, you have a story about the dentist. I've got the story about a lawyer who can't stand being in the dealing with people that he's representing and having to go to court and all this. He hates the courtroom, and he's an actor, but he does. One is the means to do the other.
Right.
That's right.
I'll tell you this. When I was an investigative reporter, I did some really good work. I have an Emmy up on the shelf there, and a couple other awards for it. But the award that makes the most closest and dearest to my heart is the Firefighter of the Year award. It's a plaque in the middle there. It's it's right there.
Yes.
That was awarded by my chief 2 years ago, and I loved doing investigative reporting because it was very, I was helping people. sometimes one person at a time, sometimes, it was a bigger issue. As an actor, I enjoyed it, but it feeds my ego. It feeds, I like to perform. I enjoy being something I'm not. But being a firefighter has been the most humbling experience. I'm very different in the firehouse. I really don't fit in the blue collar, knuckle dragger, hose puller. I'm really not that guy, but I've had to adapt and become. It's not easy, and it's not always a flattering scene, watching somebody pull a hose line into and up a flight of stairs into a building that's on fire.
Right.
It's it's crazy. Like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? Everyone's heading out. We're heading in. But it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done.
Wow.
And I'm doing it later in life, where, at my age, I should be chief by now. but I put that off till I'm about 100. I'll be chief. But
Right.
right now, riding, as they say, riding backseat and being the nozzleman. And right now, they're training me to be a driver operator. So I drive the fire engine sometimes, and I'll be eventually what you call the driver operator who pumps the water, to the hose line, which honestly is as an important job as the guy on the tip of the nozzle.
Right.
Because if you're not flowing the right pressure, if your pressure goes down, if you hit the wrong button, you could cut his water supply off and kill him. I mean, it's that serious. You don't think of these things when you're, watching TV, but it's that serious. The show that what Fire Country that you mentioned, Michael, I do enjoy the show. My wife likes it more, but there's so many things that I pick out that are like, oh, that's not possible, not like the other shows. Chicago Fire is a great example.
Right.
They're in a warehouse fire, and all of a sudden the guy, you see fire around them. It's all propane pipes that they put out to simulate fire. But he gets down on one knee, takes his helmet and his air mask off, and proposes to the female firefighter in the middle of a warehouse fire.
Wow.
If you took your mask off, you could take one breath and you're done. One breath, 1,200 degrees, immediate
That's it.
death.
Yeah.
Immediate
that's
IDLH.
funny.
It's called immediate. Anyway, it means it's not a good thing. And it's like, what is he? It's just silly sometimes.
That's
So
why I
my
asked you
only-
that question. But being a real firefighter and seeing these shows to get a difference of what's real and what's not. That was the reason.
It's no different than being a cop and watching Law and Order. You love the show, but it's like, these cops pull their guns out every episode and we're in major shootouts. Most cops don't pull their gun out in a career. And
Yeah.
I'll be a little cynical now. No one, you train for what we do. You train and you train hard. Will I ever have to, bail out a window, a third floor window, head first or down a ladder rail? Will I ever have to take a rope and tie it around a tool, hit it into the floor and hope it holds, and then put that rope around my air pack and step out the window and drop down? I hope not, but I know how to do it if I have to.
Right.
The likelihood is probably not. I probably
Right.
won't be in that situation where my egress is blocked. But I certainly want to know how to if it ever happens.
Yes.
So it's exciting. You never know what you're going to be doing today. And they say, and I understand it now, it's the best job in the world. It is. You're helping people. We don't want, we appreciate, thank you for your service. We get that a lot at the store and all, we appreciate it, but we do it for you. We're doing it for you. I'm not trying to be a hero. Really, I want to go home. And you rely on your partner to get you home, your
Right.
family, because you don't want to be the guy who goes to, my wife and says, I just didn't have the strength to pull him out. I tried, but I got scared, or it was hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's hot.
Wow.
Well, I
But
think
yeah,
you got a great combination of a fireman
Yeah.
and an
uh,
actor, you know.
Yes.
So
Unusual combination, but great one.
yeah.
there are quite a few actors who do a lot of different things. So over
There
the
are a
years,
lot of actors who have been firefighters.
yeah, I can
Really?
imagine.
Steve Buscemi was a New York City firefighter after
Was he
9/11.
really? Was he
And
Wow.
also,
really?
you ever know the show Impractical Jokers?
Yes.
All right, the guy Brian Quinn was a New York City fireman for 8 years, and he
Okay.
had to leave. He had to leave the service because of the show. It just got too busy, and he couldn't sustain both.
Right.
And it was, paying a lot more. But yeah, he did that. And
Yeah.
there's a bunch of others I can't remember. Dennis Leary's brother, who he was on the show Rescue Me as the salty
Okay.
firefighter.
Oh yeah, I
He,
remember that. Yeah.
good show. I think his brother was a fireman and died 9/11 or something. I hope I'm wrong with that, but I seem to remember that. Yeah.
Anybody got any more questions?
No questions. I just
Okay.
want to say thank you, David, for joining us today. You
Th-
were
This
wonderful.
is my second time on, and I love
Yeah.
it. I really look forward to this because it's
Well,
such a fun, just sitting down and having coffee with friends. It really feels like
Yes.
that.
we
Yes.
enjoy having
Watch
you, and
and
you're starting to work on. Is it called Black Blossom 2 or
yeah, so
Black
I started
Blossom
writing
Redo?
it. I've started writing it, and you always have to see how it's always dependent on the budget and the money. Where's the money and all that, and finding the money. Making a movie is easy. Finding the financing for it is the tough part.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I'd have made them all by now if I had found the money for it. But yeah, that's the goal. We have a good reception. We had a good reception from the cast and crew and special guest premiere that we had last week in Atlanta at the Rialto Theater. It was well received, and I think that's a good barometer of what's to come.
Good.
There's very little I would have done differently, except for that one scene I would have added to the beginning just to show what a crazy guy this guy is right from the start.
I agree.
But we get into it pretty quick still, just the same. Watch the movie Black Balsam. You can find it on streaming services. It's a lot of fun. It's not too gory, it's not like a blood fest. It's not that. It's just good psychological drama.
Yeah.
And the
And there's a good
guys who
twist at the end.
play the sheriff and his deputy are just outstanding. So
We know
look
that.
for those
That's
two
right.
guys.
Yeah,
Yes,
you've never
those
played a
two are
cop
the
before, right?
they're the real stars of the show.
Me either.
David,
You know-
I just want to say before you go, David, thank you for coming on.
Of
And
course.
we did a Black History Fact, and one of our viewers wrote in, Barbara Pitts Larkin said, history fact for the day, the gas mask that David uses as a mask as a firefighter, it was invented and improved upon by a Black man, Garrett Morgan, in Cleveland, Ohio. He got the patent for the mask in 1914.
Interesting. I have seen that mask in like old pictures and historic pictures, and it is scary looking. It covers
Yes.
the nose and mouth. That's it, not your eyes. Our masks now cover this entire area here. So your whole face is in this, and you're protected up to about 500 degrees. In a flash over, it can melt, but which wouldn't be a good situation anyway. But it's it's very different now, Matt. And it's not a gas mask. I'll correct. It's an SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. Sounds like scuba, right? But it doesn't
Right.
contain the U in underwater. But
Right.
self-contained breathing apparatus gives us it's supposed to, each cylinder, or each tank on our back is supposed to give us about 45 minutes of air. Depends on what kind of workload you're in. You're huffing and puffing. You might get 20 minutes. You might get 15 minutes before you got to get out of there.
Wow.
And yeah, but that's an interesting fact that that was invented and improved by a black man, Garrett Morgan, Cleveland. I lived in Cleveland too. That's cool. But yeah.
Well, David, just get to work on the next one.
Yeah.
And is it going to be called Black Balsam as well? Or have you decided?
It'll certainly have Black Balsam in the title. Obviously, Deadly Mortgage wasn't it wasn't well liked and well received, so we called it Black Balsam. Listen, I liked it.
It does sound like a Lifetime movie, though.
It does,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But
All
yeah, I don't have
right.
Black Balsam in the title, but the sheriff plays a pivotal role. He's retired in the movie, but he is still sort of on the case because they never. Well, I can't. Okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Don't
Watch the
disclose too
movie.
much.
Black
Black
Balsam.
Balsam. Yes.
It says, "Don't get too cozy," and that's a line that
Oh,
comes up a few times in the
that's
movie.
right.
Don't get too cozy.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. All right, David. Thanks, man. We
Oh,
appreciate you very much.
thank you guys.
It's
Thank you.
great. Let's give David a hand here. Okay, so closing out, my closing commentary, or as I see it, is when Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts take the field this Sunday in Super Bowl 57, be the first time two black quarterbacks to start a Super Bowl game. It will be historic. And both men seem to embrace that historical moment. To be on the world stage and have two black quarterbacks starting in the Super Bowl, I think it's special, Mahomes says. Chiefs coach Andy Reid says it's unique, but the biggest thing is they both are really good. I agree. I'm looking forward to a great game this Sunday. And who am I for? I don't know. I'd like to see Jalen Hurts win, but if Mahomes wins, it won't bother me. So, and that is how I see it on this February the 7th in the year 2023. That's our show for today. We want to thank David Schifter, man, for Black Balsam, for involving me in Black Balsam. And we look forward to Black Balsam 2. We want to thank the audience. We appreciate you guys. I want to thank our sponsor, Best Girl. Thank Michael, Barbara, Emily, and Joyce. And that's it on this February 7th in the year 2023. Remember, enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.